Welcome to the Coffee with Lisa podcast. This is the podcast show for you folks. If you're looking to have some fun, you want to find a better way to grow your business, you want to get new relationships, dig deeper into life, have a better life, tune into that frequency of greatness and be the most important thing that you can be, distinctively unforgettable. In case we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Lisa Patrick and I'm your host, and I have a really special guest today. But before I introduce Sherry to you, I have a few things that I want to talk about. First of all, we go live right here at Coffee with Lisa, several Facebook pages, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So I don't ask for any money, any sponsorship, but what I do ask is that you help us grow our audience, and sharing is caring, folks. So please help us out, grow the audience. Let's help others today on the Coffee with Lisa show. So Sherry Gideons is my guest today. And she is a strategic thinker. She is a mover and a shaker, and she's got a survival story for us that is unlike anything I have ever heard of before. I have met a lot of people in my life, but nobody have I ever met that is a survivor like Sherry. So I want to introduce Sherry. Sherry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know what? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from. I know you've got books, and you've been a master life coach for years. You've coached thousands of people across the country and the globe. But who is Sherry? Tell us a little bit more about your story, Sherry.
Well, I am a person who loves people for who they are. And really, my life story is all about coming to that realization in myself first. I had to figure out how to love Sherry first and find out who she was and what her higher purpose and calling is. And what that is to help people of all ages tap into their own greatness, raise their frequency in the now, and to really be happy.
Yeah. And you know what? You said something very, very pertinent. And before the show started, we were talking about possibilities and opportunities and some of the things that are happening with COVID and it's opened the eyes for people. But you said in the now, and that's really kind of important. Can you tell us more about what you mean by in the now?
Well, you have to realize yesterday is over and tomorrow has not yet occurred. Yeah. Living in the now is being aware of how you're being in yourself, because so many of us as human beings are unconscious and aware that what we're being is putting out a vibe. That vibe turns into a vibration, and that vibration extends into a frequency. Everything in the universe is sound waves. It's music. It has its own tone. And so when we're being from a feeling within ourselves through the moments throughout today, we're pulling to us an experience. We're pulling to us an environment. And that environment is the effect of the cause of what's happening inside of us. And we ask that question all the time as human beings. We're like, why do these things always happen to me?
Why me? Why me?
Yes. And that's our habit. Our habit, so much of that is unconscious to us. So as a result of those habits, we're pulling experiences into the now that are a mirror of who we are, a mirror of who we're being. That's what I mean by living in the now.
Yeah. And so what happens if you look in the mirror, Sherry, and you don't like what you see?
Well, you have to be willing to take baby steps, because I call it pockets of time. If you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, it's just like brushing your teeth. Form the habit of brushing your teeth. What does it do? It serves you. It's a habit that keeps your gums clean and your teeth performing for you, and it stops bad breath. Let's put it that way.
We hope it does. And you know what? The great thing about being virtual, I just had this conversation the other day. We were in a conference, and I said, the greatest thing about being in a virtual conference, speaking or attending, is no bad breath.
Yes. Exactly. But the point being is that when you recognize that there's something in front of you, a mirror. If you don't like yourself, then you got to change that belief. You have volition, you have choice. And the first step in all of that is realizing that you're a mighty moving power, that you have this oneness, this essence of magnificence that's within you. And so take a moment to shift that around. If you don't like yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and start simple by saying, you know what? I love you. You're amazing. And take that habit every single day and grow it. Grow its power, plant its seed and water that seed through the moments of today, daily. Walk into the bathroom, you go to use the bathroom, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, hey, you, I love you. You're amazing.
Well, it's those tiny little affirmations of yourself, right? Like to help you keep a little nudge forward each and every time. And I think, like Larry would probably tell us, he's on the show right now. Hi, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Larry would tell us, thanks, Larry. I know. We know we're rock stars. We're rock stars. Thank you. But I think the biggest thing is that I think we should take off. And would you agree with this? And I want you to tell me more about this. We need to take tiny bite-sized nudges towards making those changes so that when we do look in the mirror, we're happy with what we see. Because happiness at the end of the day, we only have one chance at life. And if we're not happy, then we've got to change the story. And we are the narrators of our own story, right?
Heck yeah. We're literally the actresses, the actors, we're the producers, we're the directors. We are the ones that are creating this reality, this experience for ourselves. And, let me take you back to where it all started for me. I started in the bodybuilding industry. And, I came up during the evolution of the 80s of this industry, competed all over Europe, came back to the US, and the industry was really getting its start for women. And of course, the beaten path of they wanted women to have more muscle. And so, of course, in myself, I had this belief system that I had to be perfect, that there was something wrong with me. And that was my habit, my program at the time. And so as a result of that, what happened is I began to follow what others said I needed to do to be true to me, which was use steroids. Eventually, I went in from steroids to drugs. And before I knew it, I was between 78 and 87 pounds, couldn't even see it, was a lifeless skeleton. And I was asking the questions so many of us ask. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? What is my purpose? And then the typical question so many of us ask, is this all there is to life? Suffering and pain? And it resulted for myself in a near-death experience. But that near-death experience, as Lisa said earlier, it opened me up to the realization of who each and every one of us is. That I'm not just this one special person in this universe of human beings. We are all that. And every single one of us has the power. We've been given this power, but we need to understand how to use it rightly in a way that serves us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people get scared and confused and not so much worried, but don't know how to tap into that power and how to really use it as a lever in their life, right? How do they amplify their life? How do they tune into that higher frequency of greatness? So what would be some advice that you would give? Because you've worked with a lot of people, you've taken them from here to here. And I don't want to talk about in business. I want to talk about life fulfillment, happiness. That's the goal, right? So you have some steps to mastery of doing that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, part of it is to really get clear about where a person is first in themselves. Because if a person is in, fear and they're struggling to get out of worry, or they're in resentment, what I would call slower vibrations. And really it's first to identify, we create a list and we identify on the page what some of those things are happening on a regular basis inside of you. whether it's self-worth issues or what have you. You have to be willing to get clear and take accountability for what's going on in yourself. And a lot of times, unless you sit down and write those down, you're unaware or unconscious of some of those states of being.
Yep.
The other thing is to identify all the things you like about yourself. What are the really true qualities of you? And how would you want to be that more? If it was a perfect world and a perfect you, how would that you be if it was already true now? It takes clarity first.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was speaking with a good friend of mine yesterday, and we were just talking about getting that clarity about, what your story that you're telling yourself versus the reality of the situation, right? And we craft our own stories. And lots of times those stories, I mean, I know I'm guilty of this all the time, and I have to take a step back and think, okay, wait a minute, is this the story I'm telling myself, or is this the reality of the situation? And it's tough to do sometimes because emotions get involved, and how do you filter through to find that right frequency, that vibration that makes the most sense? So what are some ways of doing that, Sherry? Give me some advice on how do I try to filter that, find that right vibration?
Mm-hmm. Well, like anything else, when you're living in the now, let's go back to the now and not letting things take root in your mind. Yeah. Well, it starts when it shows up. See, our mind is like an operating system in a computer.
Yeah.
And what happens when viruses come into a computer? Yeah. They duplicate. Duplicate, and before you know it, it's bogged down. You're not getting out on the information highway like you used to, fast and quick. So the key here is to stop it in its tracks. But it starts going back to the beginning. It starts with the desire. You have to have a desire in yourself first to grow and be this person that you actually came here to be. And so one of the things that I do is, if anything shows up, why is that person not calling me back? Did that tone that person use with me? Was that degrading or what have you? And instead of going there in that moment and reacting from the same vibration that's showing up, because here's a key real quick. When we react from a slower vibration, anything that doesn't feel good, if we react from that same slow vibration of negativity, guess what? We get more of that. Yeah. We attract more of that because we're pulling to us what we are. So if we're being from that frequency of slower vibrations, what's showing up in the now is mirroring to us more of that. So what I do is I imagine blue light coming from my lower belly button. That's called what I call Christ consciousness energy.
Okay.
What we want is this blue energy, like an arrow, to come all the way up to our crown and hold it in our crown. This energy, this beautiful blue energy. So instead, what happens is the blue energy is coming up. Here comes a slower thought, not good enough, not worthy, I'm pissed off, I'm mad, I'm angry. That's green energy. And that green energy wants to stop that blue energy from coming up to the crown, and it wants to curve back down to our root chakra, which is all physical world energy, slower energy. And what I do is I say, I know your real name. This is the green energy. I know your real name. If it's a person, place, or thing, I see it in front of me. I know your real name. You are love. Return to your original position. I'm telling the blue energy, go back upward.
Yeah.
Return to your original position. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sherry, I have goosebumps, and I'll tell you why I have goosebumps, because until I met you, there's only ever been one other person in my life that talks about chakra and energies and crystals and vibrations and this whole world of really understanding this spirituality as well is so fascinating to me, and that's why today was the day that I think that the world aligned that we should have met. And when we talked behind the scenes, you told me something about some work that you're doing with Dr. Joe. Let's talk a little bit about that. Can you explain who's Dr. Joe, what's his mission, and how are you working with him so people get an understanding of what's happening in your world?
Okay, so his name is actually Dr. Jeffrey Fannin. Dr.
Okay,
Jeffrey Fannin was the scientist with Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
And so Dr. Jeffrey Fannin, what he does is he registers our chakras.
Okay.
And so we all put out energy. We are all what we call particles of white light.
Sorry, Sherry, I want to interrupt. So for those who don't know what a chakra is, can you explain what a chakra is?
So we all have an energy system, and these are chakras that start from our lower, where we would call, our pubic bone, or at the base of our sacrum, which is lower base of our back. And that is the root chakra. If you pull the energy up, it goes to the sacral chakra, which is right below the belly button. Above the belly button is the solar plexus. Right at the heart is energy. Now, this is all energy that is free flowing. And if it is not free flowing, it's stuck and closed off based on the states of consciousness and the feeling emotional states we're being from. So moving up to the heart chakra, it goes to the throat chakra, the third eye, and the crown chakra. There's other things that come into play with all of this, like the thalamus gland, which is right here at the base of the back of the neck. And then a lot of that plays a role with our cellular system and what's going on in our cellular system. But getting back to what Dr. Jeffrey Fannin does, what he does is he registers, we're all putting out energy through our whole body, and we put out energy through our fingers. So he has this really, really powerful, expensive equipment that registers from each one of our fingers the energy. Now, then what he does is he has a whole mapping system that has these electronical waves, and he does 3 different tests. And these tests are, one, he has you read from a book that is, a study, a scientific study. He is able to determine, are you focused? Is information fragmenting from the front of your frontal lobe to the back of your brain? Are you distributing information from the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere? But what does this tell him? What it tells him is one, what your vibrational system is showing right now, where you're at in yourself, your aura. What kind of energy are you putting out into the field, which is what we could call the universe, we could call infinite intelligence. And basically it's showing what you're vibrating and what you're putting out frequency wise into the field. But then what it also does is it shows you where your chakras are. And I'll give you an example of myself.
Okay.
Showed my root chakra was perfect. My next chakra, it showed my sacral was over to the left. What does that mean? That means about me is I'm a goer. I'm a pusher, I'm a shaker, I'm a mover. But I give away all my energy in that area. But it moves up to the next chakras of myself. It shows that I'm highly gifted, very telepathic, that I'm extremely intuitive, that I have all these spiritual gifts. But here's the thing. We don't really have to do anything. We are one with this infinite intelligence. We could call it God. We can call it our higher power. We can call it the universe. But the truth of it is we're the same stuff. We're the pieces of this loving, omnipotent, omnipresent presence that is everywhere. It's in and through you and me and all things that exist. So if it is pure love, then you and I are pure love, and we are without nothing. But here's the rub. The rub is this. We've got choice. We've got free will. We've got volition. And guess what? If we would just surrender that will, whoa, everything we were ever meant to be, everything we desired, everything we need would show up in our moments of today, because we're being from that trust. We're being from that awareness. We're being from that love, abundance, harmony, balance, happiness, joy. We're being from that frequency because guess what? We're trusting it and allowing it to take care of the how.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then, and it's what I call like being an eligible receiver, right? You've situated yourself to be an eligible receiver of the gifts that are being given to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? And here's the real gift, everyone. You deserve it. I deserve it. Lisa deserves it.
Yeah.
We are without nothing. But if we believe we are nothing and we believe we don't have enough, then once again, what's showing up in our now environment is a mirror of what we believe and what we're being from.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those healthy affirmations of, telling ourselves that, we deserve, that we are chosen, that we are, depending on who you are, that we are beautiful, or we are gifted, or we have something to share, or, we are loved, we love our children love us, right? Like it's telling those things to ourselves all day long, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just like I said, it takes awareness and pockets. I call them baby pockets of time because, you have to realize it's taken me 23 years to get to where I am right now. But let me just say this.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. But just to show you what's possible is in 2004. Now, I had the first near death in 1997 and was shown what every single one of us is capable of. Fast forward to 2004. Now, let me just say, listen, I've experienced adversity beyond belief. I walked homeless on the streets twice. I've been married, divorced, drug addicted, bulimic, anorexic, had money, lost money, pro bodybuilder, lived with the Italian mafia in Las Vegas. And I don't say this, to make you feel sorry for me. I say this because I want you to realize that I walked in those shoes of pain and suffering and sacrifice and uncertainty. But as I surrendered and began to apply these universal principles, then guess what? My life changed. And so fast forward to 2004, I'm pregnant with twins right before 40. And I was the fittest patient my doctor had ever had. And he said to me, he says, my God, you're so healthy, you're this, you're that. About 2 weeks before delivery, I blew up like a tomato where you could have stuck a pin in me and I would have exploded.
Did you get toxic?
Out of the blue. Well, they ran every test on the book and they said that it was not toxemia. It wasn't preeclampsia, because if that were the case, I would have demonstrated that early in the pregnancy. So they went ahead and they determined that one of the twins was had attached to my waist, which they call a side insertion. And so they said, okay, C-section, let's deliver C-section. So I delivered a month early, and one of the babies was born without a throat. She was born with what we call hemivertebrae. We all naturally have full vertebrae. My daughter was born with half in her shoulders and half in her lower lumbar. She was born with what's called double hernias. And so, of course, they medevac her to do a throat reconstruction. Now, I want to talk about a couple things here that we all can use. One is when we talk about affirmations, there's even a more powerful way to declare with our word a vibrational frequency. And that's what I call prayer treatment. It's like an affirmation, but what's happening is you're aligning with this frequency of oneness, this frequency of God, which is pure love. There is no separation between you and it. So when my child was going into surgery and they were giving us the worst case scenario, instead of looking at the appearance of illness and dis-ease in her, I only saw wholeness. So I used my word. I declared first that there was one source, one power, one infinite intelligence. That life lives through me, within me, as it does with my daughter, Haley. I declare and use my word right here and right now that I only see everything functioning in her body as whole, perfect, and complete. Every cell, every organ is aligned. Her throat is attached and she is swallowing and working perfectly in her divine self, her divine order. And then what I do is I thank. I am so grateful for this glorious truth, this wisdom of knowing. And as I release this word, I allow it to be so, and so it is. So that's called prayer treatment. And that's what I did with my daughter. I never saw dis-ease. I never saw separation. I only saw the divine truth of who she was. I got out of the way of the how, and I spoke my word with the knowing and the expectation that we would get perfect order, perfect life, perfect being. And that's exactly what we got. Now, with myself, 1 week later, I go into total cardiac arrest. And
I didn't know that.
Yes, I go into total cardiac arrest. They come back and they say that we don't know why. Oops, of course, my little doobie jobber is going off here. They don't know why.
That's a great thing.
I know.
Can't control everything in the life. That's just
okay. Anyway, they come back and they say that I had a massive heart attack. I've got between 32 and 37% heart function. I'm going to be on my back for 6 months waiting for a heart transplant. That literally I may never ever exercise again. And before I had this,
nobody noticed this. Like, I mean, I had twins, so I know what it's like to go through. I mean, you go through 1,000 different tests, more than an average, and not one doctor. I guess they're not looking at your heart, but still, there should have been indicators.
No, what happened is they before the heart attack happened, they had me at the Ronald McDonald Charity House, and I had started to develop the popping and fizzing from my mouth. And my husband got me into outpatient services, and they ran tests like for 6 hours from the waist down. They thought that maybe I had a small infection from the C-section. They weren't sure, but they came back and they said, nothing's wrong. We can't find out what's wrong. So they gave me antibiotics because they thought, maybe she has a small infection. But fast forward. And here's the cool thing, everyone. So I had another near-death experience in that incident. And in this one, obviously, I went to the light again. Yeah. And in this experience, I always say they, because one of the things that's so magnificent about when you have a near-death experience is you're surrounded with ascended masters, angels, your soul group, people, that have been in your family for, different lifetimes, that sort of thing. Yeah. So, and what they told me is they said, Sherry Marie Gideons, you know who you are. You know what you're meant to do. And you need to go back and do that. You need to show the world what's possible. And so guess what? I never acted as if anything was wrong. I told the doctor, I said, I appreciate your diagnosis, but I've had another near-death experience. I know what's possible. I know who I am. And I said to him, I'm going to heal to 100%. Guess what he said? He said,
you're crazy.
He said, you're crazy. We need to look at this realistically. He said, you're a very sick woman. He says, you need a heart transplant. And I told him, I said, I'm going to show you what's possible. And there's lots of things that I did through this process. But one of the key things, what the key ingredients to the recipe is I lived in each day, and I was being from capital F, capital R, capital O, capital M, from the place that I was already healed. So they said no exercise. Guess what?
You exercised
anyway. I didn't let people hold conversations with me about fear or disease or sickness. I always talked about how I was going to demonstrate wholeness, perfect health. And fast forward 3 years later, he calls me into the office. He sits me down and he says, you're the most amazing person I've ever met in my life. And he says to me, he says, when you first told me what you told me, I thought you were crazy. He says, but as I've gotten to know you over the last 3 years, he says, as a medical doctor, he says, we're taught to think from, what the appearance
from science.
You got it. But he said what happened with his relationship with me is he realized that there is a power that operates within all of us that literally has healed to 100%. I went from between 32 and 37% heart function to healing to 100%.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, we've got Shelby on and Llewellyn on and Roy on. I mean, I'm sure that they're like me thinking like that is the power of the mind, truly, right? Like, and you hear stories of this all the time. I mean, I knew some of that story because you shared those stories with me, but I didn't know this. Like, that gives me goosebumps. Because I think there is a state of power in healing in the mind. And if you allow yourself to succumb, especially, you talk about people who've got cancer, or, I tried for years to get pregnant. And it was funny when I went down with my girlfriend to get, actually a friend of mine, not my girlfriend, but a friend of mine, to actually get the eggs implanted. And as we left, she said to me, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I know I'm pregnant. And she's like, well, how do you know that? And I said, because today was the day of the anniversary of my grandfather's death. And I know that he was looking over me, right? It's the power of the mind. I went in there thinking it's going to happen once, and it's only ever going to happen once. Both eggs are going to be fertilized, and my husband and I are going to have twins now, healthy twins. And throughout that whole pregnancy, every single day, I didn't pray for healthy twins. I actually told myself, the twins are healthy. The twins are healthy. Every single day I woke up with that thought. And they were healthy, premature, but they were healthy children. So I think the power of the mind plays a key role in healing, but also in gifting you those new opportunities and possibilities, right?
Well, let me explain how that works, and I'll tell you how it actually works. Remember, I said that we are the same stuff as God, as our higher power, as the universe. We are the same stuff. We're not separate from us. It isn't bigger and wholer and mightier. We are the same stuff, and we can align with its power in oneness. And so what happens is we're all given free will. And so we want to be over here analyzing, rationalizing, scrutinizing the how when we have a desire. And it's when we get out of the way. It's when we allow, because think about this for a second. This is an infinite universe. There's infinite avenues, channels, and opportunities for the how to be delivered, just like with yourself. You couldn't have the how happen, where you got pregnant on your own. You had to have eggs inserted into you. But that's an avenue, a channel, an opportunity that you allowed. You got out of the way and you allowed it, and you aligned with that power inside of you that took care of the how.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how do, in business, so let's talk a little bit about business, because you talked, you talk about, and I've made some notes about, the blue energy, and the real secret is in the now. So for those people who are watching, we're talking about life and happiness and greatness. How do you, because you are extremely successful and you have some really crazy things happening in your business right now. And it is because you get out of the way and you allow the now to happen. But how do you do that in business versus life? And does it look differently? Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, to be honest with you, it really does not look differently. It really comes down to clarity. And so as you create, I call it a mind map. I love to do mind maps, and I have a mind mapping program. But ultimately, I put me in the center of the mind map. And then what I do is I create all these different ideas. Okay, so what does Sherry want to do for happiness, joy, and travel? What does Sherry want to do for business? So in business, what's the key ingredient for Sherry? The key ingredient is, how can I inspire people? What can I do that allows me to play full out, that allows me, one, to be myself, but also to help other people create that in their own lives. And so it's clarity for you. It takes you identifying in yourself what feels good for you. But it goes back to the same thing that I've been saying numerous times throughout this interview. And one, is letting go in the moment and just surrendering to, what comes through you on that piece of paper, what feels good for you. And then once you identify and start writing these things down, and let's use business to apply it in business. So for myself, I'm calling Sherry what I would call a channeler. So because I live in the now and I surrender in the now, ideas from what I call the universe come flooding into Sherry.
Yeah.
So I always have a piece of paper, or I write in my notes on my iPhone these ideas that funnel through. And so let me just tell you, I have numerous
I love it.
books, that I write all these ideas on. But you got to get them out of your head, because when we talk about energy and frequency, what happens is you want to be a free flowing spirit. You want that energy, like we talked about earlier, to come up all through your chakras and flow back and forth with ease and grace. And so when we get them out of our head and we get them onto paper, we can start to identify the areas we're ready to move in right now, because it goes back to focus. When we focus our energy in a specific area we're ready for right now. So let's use Sherry as an example for business. What I did recently is I put everything on a mind map, and I identify how everything goes together. And then I ask myself the question, what am I ready for right now? Well, we're doing what I'm ready for right now. I'm ready to impact in a very big way and get information out in a very big way. But I'm also creating masterminds so that I can bring other people into this environment and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's important too, the power of writing something down, and one, releasing it from your mind and allowing it to go onto paper, but also saying, now I've written it down, it's more real than a thought, right? Like, it's now real, it's tangible, you can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it. And there's a power behind that. So, we never got to the place where you were talking about Dr. Jeffrey. And so what are you doing with him?
Oh my gosh. Well, so when you want to talk about these deeper things and how you're attracting every avenue, channel, and opportunity in the moment. So I'm just allowing. So long story short, out of the blue, there was a posting on Facebook from one of my friends that she was doing some work with Dr. Jeffrey Fannin. I ended up, friend requesting him. He ended up messaging me on Facebook and said, hey, you're local. Wow. What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
And so we set up an appointment to get together. Through the conversation, we discovered that he has been an Abraham junkie. And then from that, he asked the question for 3 days, who is Sherry Gideons? Yeah. And just like we said, and I didn't say this earlier, the quality of questions you ask yourself determines the quality of life you live. Because as I said earlier, we live in an infinite universe of everything, oneness. So he's asking that question, and the answer came back to him, and it was, I'm going to partner up with Sherry Gideons. Sherry Gideons partner up with
Sherry, were you for 3 days going around, who's Dr. Jeffries? Who's Dr. Jeffries? Yep. What was going through your mind while Dr. Jeffries was asking this question every day and those 3 days? What was going through your mind?
So because I'm so intuitive, I already knew that something was kind of coming into existence. I already knew it. And I allowed it. When we talk about, taking root in our mind, we can allow the positive, we can allow the desire, we can allow the high joy to take root. And so when I'm being from that higher vibration and letting that take root, I'm pulling into my now moments everything that is in alignment with me. So that's how I pulled him. So now him and I are creating opportunities for what I was speaking about earlier, for all of you to have it done to you too. We've created a new program. It's going to be released very soon. It's called moment to moment.
And can they find out about it on your website, Sherry, eventually?
So they can actually find out about it on Dr. Jeffrey Fannon's website, which is so easy. It's called thoughtgenius.com. Thoughtgenius.com.
I'm going to put this in the banner.
Perfect.
There we go.
They can find all about it there. And like I said, you are an individualized human being, and there's all kinds of feelings and emotions that are going on in each of you daily. This will show you your blood test. It'll show you what's going on in your system. It'll show you if you're aging rapidly, what your cellular structure is, where your attention span is, everything, your aura, your chakras, what's in alignment, what's out of alignment. And
so is this like a software program that works, Sherry, or is this like something that you have to do in person? Like, walk me through, what does this look? Because I'm interested, I'm sold. This whole world is so fascinating to me, and I know so little about it. So walk me through, what's the process? How does Thought Genius work for me?
So the process, since obviously we all live all over the world, there's two processes. The one process is he sends a little package to you. It's a little itty bitty pinprick. You prick your finger, and that gets sent to a brain span lab. And this brain span lab literally goes through your entire blood. It determines your whole cellular structure. Are you aging? It also does a study based on, focus with yourself, all of that. That's one part of it. And then what happens is he walks you through Zoom or what have you, through a process of telling you exactly what's going on in you, what you need to do. He takes you through an 8-week program. Now, if you want to go through the whole program, which is what I'm doing, literally, you can come to Arizona. You do this program with your fingers, which is, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. And then you also do a brain study where this electromagnetic waves literally hook up to your brain, super easy, super simple, and determine what's going on in your left and right hemisphere, your frontal lobe. Are you receiving information from the front to the back of your brain? It just tells what's happening.
So now I'm going to ask more time. So is it measuring brain activity within, and that's how that's the program, the algorithm, if you will, is determining those answers based on the activity that's occurring. So that's so fascinating to me. Wow. And so do you have to come? So if I came to Arizona, God willing, COVID ever releases and I can actually travel again, I have to come once a month, or you do this once and then you do the 7 other weeks?
So you come to Arizona, and if you came to Arizona, we do both studies on you. We do, the whole brainwave study, we do the blood test, and then we meet with you through that. We also take you through what's called heart math, which is heart coherence, because a lot of us are literally not in heart coherence. And that's what's also stopping a lot of the energy that goes through all of our chakras.
What's heart coherence? What is that?
So heart coherence is when you are literally operating from your heart chakra. And we talked earlier about how energy distributes through our body, and it literally goes out into what we call photons, little particles of light, photons that are universally everywhere in the universe. And what happens is we're putting out this energy from our heart. When we're not in coherence, what's happening is the field's not working for us. See, we're trying to do everything ourselves. We're pushing and we're drained. And when we're in heart coherence, what's happening is the field, this God universe, is doing the work for us with ease and grace. It's just happening. We're pulling to us everything constantly with ease and grace.
Interesting. And so you're launching when? Thought Genius launches when?
So Thought Genius is in existence, but Moment to Moment is launching within the next month. We're in the middle right now of making all the finalizations on our intro video and all of that. But we are launching in the next month. And you know, going back to heart coherence, the beauty of it is it's amazing, you guys, when you start to do these heart coherence activities, you think that you're breathing properly. And you realize, because it shows a printout of when you're in heart coherence and when you're not, what percentage of heart coherence you're in, and what percentage you're in what we call lower, slower frequencies. And like, you know, I get into a 100% heart coherence. Like I could do that 3 days in a row. And then one day all of a sudden I'll do 88% heart coherence. And I'm like, what the heck? Oh my God, what am I doing? And then so you're more focused on, you know, getting in heart coherence. And it's you know, this is, like you said earlier, fascinating. And
it is. It's fascinating. Like it's a whole other world of my life that I never knew anything about until probably the last 6 weeks. And I've been starting to get, you know, and I do believe, you know, I believe that the energy serves what you're ready to hear.
You got
right?
it.
And so clearly I must be ready to hear it because it's coming at me from all different directions. And I'm like, stand up, Lisa, take notice. Something's going on in your life. Like you need to start to take notices. It's just coming too fast not to take notice of it, right? So that's exciting. Well, I'm going to look forward to Moment. Going to look at the Thought Genius. And of course, and we're going to close up the show. What's the one piece of advice, Sherry? Because you have, we didn't get into a lot of the details, but I mean, you are a survivor. You are the person that I know in my life that has survived the most and overcome the most challenges ever. Everything that's thrown to you. I mean, you're here today, and that's a testament to the way that you tune into your vibration and the frequency of your greatness. So if you were to leave one word of advice to anybody, wouldn't matter what age they were, what sex they were, and what would be that one piece of advice moving forward that you would expect people to follow?
I just want people to realize that each and every one of you has come right now in this time for a magnificent reason. That I don't have anything you don't have yourself. Yes, we've all struggled through setback and challenge and adversity. But right here, right now, each and every one of you is a point of power. And that power exists in you. All you need to do is declare that, is receive that, as allow that, and be more in the now, right now, from the place that you would be as if it were already so now. Be from the you would want to be right now as if it were already true.
Wow, it's powerful. And I hope those of you who are listening and doing the replay and on iTunes later really take that advice to heart, because I think especially now in COVID and the way that our lives are moving at a pace that we don't know what a year from now, what 6 months is going to look like, right? It's a new normal, they call it, which drives me crazy. I can't stand that phrase, new normal. But anyways, I think it's really important to live in the now and not to get caught up in the devices and distracted from many things. Be present in the moment and live in the now. So from the bottom of my heart, Sherry, I appreciate you coming on today with Coffee with Lisa. And for those of you who are tuning in, if you like this podcast, please, share and like and reach out to Sherry at sherrygideons.com and give us a review. I mean, sharing is caring, folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you.